Good evening, space lovers. Today, something historic happened in the history of space exploration. For the first time ever, human eyes saw the part of the moon that no one in all of human history had ever seen up close. April 6, 2026, 6:45 p.m. Eastern Time. The Orion spacecraft disappears from every radar screen on Earth. 40 minutes. No signal, no contact, nothing. NASA calls it a planned communications blackout. The moon blocks radio waves coming from Earth. Physics. Nothing special. But just imagine this. You open your eyes. Reed Wiseman is sitting in front of you. Victor Glover beside him. Christina Koch is to your right. And someone tells you, "We have lost contact with Earth." What would your reaction be? Write it in the comments. And now, here is what was actually happening on board during those 40 minutes. April 7th, 2026 will go down in the history of space exploration forever. On this day, the Artemis II crew set a new record, breaking the achievement that stood since the last millennium, further than Apollo 13 in 1970. 252,760 miles from Earth. That distance is equivalent to 452,964 football fields, or 50,024 Burj Khalifa towers stacked on top of each other. Astronaut Christina Koch described it like this. She said, "Earth is almost in full eclipse. The moon is almost in full daylight. And the only way you could get that view is to be halfway between the two. Not there. Not here, in the void between two worlds." So, 40 minutes of silence. What is happening on board? Shortly before the blackout, NASA published their plan. The crew was scheduled to observe the lunar surface, photograph craters, conduct scientific observations, and take notes. Everything planned. Everything by protocol. But here is one moment NASA chose not to publicize. At 7:02 p.m., 3 minutes before maximum distance from Earth, Orion passed over the Hertzsprung crater, 7,000 football fields in diameter, one of the most massive impact craters on the dark side of the moon. This is where the astronauts were flying, directly over it, in total silence. The capsule was at the minimum permitted altitude for this mission. What they saw through the windows at that moment, flying over the lunar surface in absolute silence, we do not know. Official photos will be released after splashdown, if all of them are released. Now think about what 40 minutes of total silence actually means for a human being. No voice from Houston, no data feed, no confirmation that anyone on Earth even knows you exist at that moment. You are 4 people in a metal capsule the size of a camper van. You are further from every other human being than anyone has ever been. And the only thing outside your window is a dead world covered in craters, and 252,000 miles of empty space between you and home. Psychologists who work with astronauts have a term for this. They call it the overview effect. The moment when a person sees Earth from space and something fundamental shifts inside them. Every astronaut who has experienced it describes it differently. But they all say the same thing. You cannot explain it to someone who hasn't been there. Words don't reach it. Now imagine experiencing that, but in complete silence. No ground control, no radio chatter, just 4 people and the universe. Apollo 8 astronaut Frank Borman said the silence on the far side was the most profound thing he ever experienced. And he only orbited. These 4 flew closer and stayed longer. And then something happened that no human being in history had ever witnessed. At 8:35 p.m., the sun disappeared behind the moon, right in front of the crew's eyes. A solar eclipse. But not from Earth, from space. The moon covered the sun for nearly an hour. And in that moment, the solar corona became visible, the outer atmosphere of the Sun. The very thing scientists have studied for decades, but never seen this close and this clearly. Imagine this. You are in a small capsule the size of 2 minivans. Outside the window, absolute blackness of space. The moon, massive, dead, silent, covers the Sun, and around it, a thin glowing ring of corona. No atmosphere, no scattered light, just pure space and that halo around a dead world. The astronauts photographed this. The images will be released after splashdown on April 10th. These will be the most important photographs of the year. And one more moment. At 7:25 p.m., when Orion emerged from behind the moon and communication was restored, the crew witnessed Earthrise. Earth rising over the lunar horizon. The first time this was photographed was by Apollo 8 in 1968. Astronaut William Anders took the shot. NASA almost didn't include cameras for that purpose. It wasn't on the official mission plan. Anders grabbed the camera anyway. That photograph, called Earthrise, became one of the most influential images in human history. It launched the environmental movement. It changed how humanity saw itself. Now, 58 years later, 4 human beings witness this with their own eyes. Not in a photograph, not on a screen. Live. Earth rising above the edge of the moon. Blue. Alone. The only one. Christina Koch will later say in an interview, "It changes you. You look at Earth from there, and you understand how small it is, how alone it is, and how strange it is that we still fight over pieces of it." Right now, April 7th. The crew is flying home. 3 days until splashdown off the coast of San Diego. 3 days to process what they saw, and to prepare for what they will say and what they will not say at the press conference. History knows the precedents. After Apollo 11, the astronauts were unusually quiet at public events. Aldrin spoke for years about depression and the impossibility of explaining what he felt. Armstrong avoided detailed interviews until his death. Cernan cried every time he spoke about his last walk on the lunar surface. What happens to a person who saw what they saw, who stood where no one had ever stood? We will find out on April 10th, when the capsule splashes down, when the hatches open, and when 4 people return to the world they watched from 252,000 miles away. 40 minutes of silence are over. Communication restored. The crew is alive and heading home. But the questions remain. What did they see over the Hertzsprung crater? What did the solar corona reveal? What will the first words be when the hatches open? We will be here, breaking down every photograph, every word, every pause in every interview, not the official version, the full picture. Subscribe. April 10th, Splashdown Day. The next video drops within 1 hour of them touching the water.